Rules aren't meant to be broken. They're meant to be rewritten altogether. If you're ready to play by your own rules, if you are a rebel with a cause, I think you'll love it here. Bring a friend, sit back, and enjoy another episode. Or don't. Remember, you write the rules here. Hello, my love. Welcome back to another episode of Rima's Rules. Today, we're going to talk all about how to become so extraordinary, so amazing, how to maximize your life so much so that you make the younger version of yourself proud. This is a topic that honestly means the world to me because so much of what drives my day-to-day decisions has increasingly become about becoming someone I can be proud of. And I remember vividly being in my dorm room in college. I was like 17 or 18 years old, writing to the 5-year from now version of myself. I remember visualizing her and just being so in awe of her, having literally no idea what was going to happen in my life in those 5 years, but just knowing and having so much confidence in that older version of me. And when that older version of me reread that letter, I remember getting so emotional because a lot did happen in those 5 years. There was a lot of rejection, a lot of just figuring out my life as far as toxic relationships. Those 5 years also happened to be the last 5 years that I would get to spend with my dad. And obviously, my 18-year-old self had no clue who she was writing to. She had no clue what that future version of me was going to go through, and yet still had so much faith in how I would be able to handle it. The reason that I am just so excited to hit on this topic is because as of very recently, I have really flipped the switch on how I'm actually approaching this. So without further ado, these are my 3 rules on how to become someone that your younger self would be so proud of. Rule number 1 is to actually flip the switch. Instead of setting an example for your younger self, I actually want you to set an example for all future versions of yourself. You might think that makes no sense because it's like, why would my future self be looking up to me? For a second, I want you to remember or reminisce on a period of your life where you were going through something very difficult. Maybe it was a breakup, maybe it was a career rejection or redirection, maybe you lost someone that you love. And I want you to think, what does this version of yourself think about that version of yourself? How does she feel about her? How do you today feel about that version of yourself? I'm willing to bet that you have some sort of admiration, maybe even appreciation and gratitude for how she chose to handle that time. You actually, in some ways, might even look up to that version of you because of how much courage and faith and strength she brought to a time period that was so tumultuous and maybe even so uncertain. This was a major, major breakthrough for me, not just in how I chose to deal with things in the moment, but also in how I started looking at the concept of time. Towards the end of 2023, I actually saw this TikTok where the creator talked about doing this activity on New Year's Eve where you wrote from the perspective of the next year's version of you. And I just really loved that idea because I had never before written from the perspective of a future version of me. This activity was actually encouraging me to embody her and write to me. So I'm like, that's honestly so cool. I want to try it. I did that activity literally the night of New Year's Eve. My whole family was like on our rooftop party at my brother's house. And I was like getting in my dress, but then I sat down being the procrastinator that I am and took 20 minutes before like going to the party with everybody to just sit in my room in silence and write to the end of 2024 version of myself. I still haven't reread it, and I'm like so excited in the next few months to reread that entry and realize like, wow, look at how much I've grown. I fell so in love with that activity and how it made me feel that I just started doing that even as recently as 2 days ago. Anytime I'm going through something or I feel I'm lacking courage or lacking faith, I channel the future version of me and write to this version. I start to ask myself, what would the version of me who's already made it out of this period tell me right now? And during one of my earlier entries in this year where I was really not feeling good, there was this sentence. The future version of me literally said, you are going to be so grateful and in awe of yourself for how you chose to handle days like this. Honestly, that got me so emotional because I'm like, that's so true. How have I never thought of that? How have I never realized that All of these things that I want to become, or all these goals I want to achieve, in your case, all these things that you see for yourself and see for your life, this version of you, the decisions you're making right now are going to be the determining factor in whether you get there. So if you have this goal to make a certain amount of money, or to reach a certain body image look, or to be in some sort of relationship, a lot of us make the mistake of thinking that that version of ourselves is the most impressive version, the one who has made these things a reality for herself. But I would actually argue that it's you, this version that I'm talking to right now, who has not achieved those things. You are the one who I am most impressed by, and you are the one who the future versions of yourself are going to be the most impressed by, because you chose to believe in yourself when nothing around you actually gave you proof or evidence that you should. You had so much faith and courage in the absence of the real life proof, and you chose to go after something without all of that. You chose to go after something even if it made you look crazy, or if it made you look like a hopeless romantic, or if it made you look like you were being delusional. That's the version of you that you're going to look back on and be so in admiration of. I think back to the 24-year-old version of me. It was months after my dad had passed away, and I wanted to bring in my birthday with a positive vibe and a positive feeling, and I just wanted to feel optimistic and hopeful. And so I promised myself that I would launch a blog and a website. And I had done the whole website, all the branding, all the writing, everything from start to finish by myself. The version of me that is doing this right now on YouTube is lit and cool and amazing. And everything that comes out of this channel is going to be so phenomenal, but it's just not going to be nearly as impressive as the version of me who was dealing with intense grief and decided to turn that pain into a platform, in that case through a blog. I was writing every single week without fail. Every single Thursday, I was uploading a post. I look back on that girl with less followers, with less engagement, with less talent, maybe even with less skill. And I'm more impressed by her than this version of myself because of all she had to go through to decide to be that person. So I actually think we can flip the switch a little bit. We don't need to just look at our past self and be like, how can we be an example for her? How can we make her proud? We should also set the standard for our future self so that she has less excuses, so that when she's dealing with something super challenging, she remembers the courage that you exhibited way back when, 5 years ago, so that when she's struggling with discipline or with time management, she remembers the version of you that was on her shit. I want you to live your life so profoundly right now so that you can basically pass the figurative baton to all future versions of yourself so that they can imagine even more for themselves because of what you chose to do with your life today. Rule number 2 is that your value is literally what you decide it is. Only you can decide what your value is. And this is a way that I see so many of us, myself included. I've had to really, really remind myself of this lately. We really give away our power when we think that our valuation is determined by other people. Even in the business world, a lot of times a product's value is just in what the person who is marketing it and selling it decides that it is. And a perfect example of this, I was actually rereading this because I thought it was so funny, is the Payless Palessi social experiment. And if you don't know about it, I'm so excited to be the first one to tell you about it because it's so funny. Basically, Payless shoes rebranded themselves under this name Palessi. And nobody knew this. They did this as a social experiment, and they pretended to be a luxury brand by the name of Palessi. They literally took their same $20 shoes and marked them all the way upwards of $700 to see whether people would just fall for the gimmick and buy those shoes anyway. And if you haven't already guessed it, it worked. People literally bought Payless shoes for $700 because the brand said so. And I find that to be such an interesting, remarkable example of how perception can be reality, and how with a little rebrand, Payless made people believe that their shoes were worthy of almost 50 times their actual price. And that's literally just because someone decided to say that they were. in that moment. And I mean, all of our luxury brands, I'm sure if we did the margins of like how much it actually costs to produce these things and how much we're paying for them, we will very clearly be able to see that it tells the same story. The brand said that it was valuable and everything else followed suit. I want you to apply this to your real life. You are only as valuable as you think that you are. You are only as worthy as you think that you are. There are so many things that you are doing knowingly or unknowingly that are driving your value down. And the first thing is waiting for somebody else to tell you who you are. When you decide who you are, when you just say, this is who I am and I'm worthy and I'm valuable, watch how people just fall in line with that. Everything from the way you behave, your body language, your posture, all of these are just silent indicators of what you think you're worth. So instead of literally like trying to take it case by case and with your family, try to get people to see you for who you are, or understand you, or at work, try to fight or bargain for your worth, or in relationships, try to make sure that that person appreciates you and values you. We all fall into these pitfalls. These are behaviors that I call auditioning for love, or auditioning for, in this case, value. You're trying to basically, like, you're in a circus and you're trying to audition for people to look at you and be like, oh, okay, she's worth something. We'll keep her. Oh, okay. Yeah. We like her. It's a lot of people pleasing, desperate energy when you are trying to control the way they see you. And if you've watched any of my other videos, this is actually a manipulation tactic. A lot of us think of the word manipulator and we think of someone evil. People pleasing is manipulative. You're trying to control the way that people see you. It's a control manipulation tactic. You want to manipulate literally the way that they perceive you, when you can never really control the way other people see you. And why should you? Because the way they see you is not a reflection of who you are anyway. And then on top of that, all that does is drive your value down. Do you see these luxury brands paying for every luxury, paying for every ad spot or every billboard or every podcast ad? Like, do you see them on YouTube in between these videos? Do you ever see these luxury brands begging for your attention? No. What you do see is them acting like they're low-key too good for you and they don't even care if you buy their stuff, which is so annoying. I was literally overseas having to wait in line to get to one of these stores, and there was like nobody even in the store, which kind of pissed me off, because it's like I literally see 5 people in your store and people are walking out and you're not even letting me in. And because I'm someone who works in marketing, I understand that it creates this aura of exclusivity and we're better than you, which is so weird and cringy in my opinion. But I understand that it works because it creates an aura, like I said, of being something so high value that we're not desperate for you to come shop here. As a matter of fact, we're going to make you walk through a few rings of fire before we allow you in. We're going to make you, in other cases, sign up for this wait list before we can invite you to come and shop. Like, there's all these weird, cringy marketing behaviors that end up working on people because it just increases the value and the exclusivity and sometimes even the scarcity of these products. I'm not telling you to be weird like that, but there is something to learn from tactics like that. And it's this power dynamic where when you know what you're worth, you're not begging for anybody to see it. You are just simply existing in that power, and the world just follows suit. And the people who don't follow suit just don't get access to you. That is how powerful your aura is. That is how you will never audition for someone to see you for what you're worth when you actually know what you bring to the table. There's a short poem that just came up in my head. I wrote it a few years back when I was really coming into my worth and understanding, like, I don't need to audition for this. If you don't see it, that's a you problem. But it goes like this. And I wrote this on January 7th, 2016 at 7:11 a.m. Who knows what I was going through? When you know what you bring to the table, never compete for a seat at its head. And the title of it is I'll Excuse Myself Instead. And that's the whole vibe. If you know what you bring to the table, you don't need to compete for a seat at its head. You just lead. That table is not for you. That table is not for you. If you are not being honored in a specific space the way that you deserve to be, then you don't need to be there. You should never be begging people for a seat at the table when you know what you bring to it. Number 3 is to understand the very big difference between self-reflection and self-deprecation. And for the purposes of this example, I want to go through the difference in energy between being a queen and being a princess. And I'm not talking about these two things in the literal sense. I don't really like royalty or talking about royalty. So I'm not talking about any specific like queen or princess because that's just not my thing. Just imagining the energy shift between what it would take to be a figurative princess and what it would take to embody a queen. And when you think about princess energy, what I feel from that is her whole entire identity is defined by what she has not yet become. Whereas a queen knows who she is and has tremendous responsibility to represent that. There's that whole like heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? She takes so much responsibility for that role and does it so gracefully and so powerfully. She's not begging for anyone to see her. Like I said in rule number 2, she's not begging for anyone to see her as the queen because she's already sitting on that throne. Like whether you want to see it or not is on you. She is the queen. And the reason that I'm bringing this up when it comes to self-reflection and self-deprecation is I am someone who is incredibly self-reflective and incredibly self-aware. And for the vast majority of my life, I actually felt like I was looking at a mirror that amplified all of my flaws 24/7 and made it so that that's all I focused on. It took me so many years to realize that being self-reflective does not inherently mean that I need to be self-deprecating. Because I'm also someone who tries to be as transparent and honest as possible, I felt like I had to put my flaws on Front Street in order to be authentic. And now that I'm someone really stepping into my value and stepping into my power, into my queen energy, if you will, I realize that's none of your business. That is the flaws and insecurities that I have are literally none of your business. Now, I'm not trying to breed a community of narcissists. So what I am not saying is that you should ignore your flaws and insecurities. What I'm not saying is that you should be mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all the time. What I'm saying is you should look in the mirror and self-reflect regularly, but don't feel the need to turn that self-reflection into self-deprecation between you and yourself and also between you and other people. You don't need to share with people the insecurities that you're working through. You can be vulnerable with a select group of people that make you feel safe doing that. But the reason that I'm saying, and I wish I knew this at a younger age, that you don't need to do that is because the wrong people will weaponize that against you. The wrong people will kind of trap you in this identity of who you have not yet become. Like I said, princess energy. They won't see it as you being transparent or vulnerable. A lot of times, it will just continue to fuel this negative loop in your head that you are defined by these flaws. And that's why I say it's really none of their business. One thing I'm learning to do in my queen energy is just reframe those flaws to begin with. Let me give you a real example because I feel comfortable sharing some of this with you. A big flaw that I'm definitely always working on is being a perfectionist. And I know that's like the flaw that everyone likes to use because it makes them sound good, but no. It's not a good thing. It's something that cripples me, and sometimes I will not start something until I can do it perfectly, which leads to me not being consistent and sometimes really, really letting things pile up, both literally and figuratively. Like laundry is a constant struggle for me because I have some sort of mental block around the fact that it can never be perfect, because as soon as I've finished an entire load and folded it and put it away, here's another thing that I need to just throw in the laundry, and now it's just ruined. It's not perfect. It sounds like I'm maniacal, and I kind of am when it comes to these things, and it really has been something that like impacts me in so many ways that I'm trying to work on. The self-deprecating version of me used to be like,
oh my God, you're such a perfectionist. You suck. You're so inconsistent. Why can't you just get over it? Why can't you just start things before they become so big and pile up? Why can't you just get over this thing?
It would be really mean and nasty and judgy, right? The more self-reflective version of me on her queen energy trusts herself and understands that she's going to work through it. And so instead of saying like, why you say things like, I'm really confident that I'm going to get past this. Or I'm really excited to try this new solution towards Or I have so much faith in not allowing my past perfectionist tendencies to define my future. And it's like you're not denying the flaw. You're not pretending that you're perfect. You're acknowledging the thing that you're working on and combining it with this tremendous level of faith and trust in yourself. That is one of the most game-changing qualities, in my opinion, to help all versions of you, past, future, and everything in between, be super proud of who you end up becoming because you trust yourself. You're approaching things with faith and confidence and curiosity instead of helplessness and defensiveness and fear. That is the energy that I would imagine it is to be a queen, is to sit on your throne with your crown on. Understand that you have these things to do and you are very responsible for lots of people and lots of things in your day-to-day. But you don't have time to sit there and be self-deprecating because things need to get done. And so you're going to fuel yourself with so much positive emotion as you do those things. Another random example that came to mind for all my Lion King lovers like me is the difference between Simba and Mufasa's energy, or even like Simba and his older self. One is insecure and not really knowing whether they can do something, or whether they're kind of running away and avoiding things and just focused on all the ways that they're inadequate or being exiled. And then the other one is just like BDE vibes. Like, I'm doing this. I don't know how, but I'm doing this and it's going to happen. And I'm confident that I'm the person to do it. And that is what I want for you. I want you to approach every new situation in your life with so much faith and courage, even and especially when you have no idea what's about to happen. I just want you to decide that you are someone so worthy of being trusted. And I want you to see that while self-reflection is such a useful tool in being that and in growing and in learning from all of your experiences, self-deprecation is literally poisonous and adds nothing to that self-reflective process. If anything, it just eats away at all of the positive emotion that you're going to need to get through it. It is such an illogical way of living. And I really, really, really caution you, don't be like past versions of me. Don't look at self-deprecation or cracking these little jokes about yourself or speaking negatively about yourself or trying to constantly volunteer information about how you're not good at this or not good at that. Like if someone says that you look beautiful, you're like, oh my God, I like changed my outfit 5 times because I was so insecure. And you feel like that makes you look honest when really it just makes you look insecure, and it just fuels that negative loop in your head that you are not worthy of the praise that your own self-narrator is willing to give you if you would just let them. I have this visual in my head as I was writing the outline for this video of all the versions of myself, from when I was a baby to a little kid to a college student, and then even the future versions of myself, the mom with kids, when I become a grandma one day, when I'm super, super old and, super wrinkly, and all of those versions of myself just sitting all around and watching intently at how I'm living my life right now and clapping. And I just loved that visual because it made me feel so supported, but at the same time, so powerful. It really puts into perspective the importance of the way that you're living your life right now. Not just to make that younger version of you super proud and in awe, but to set the bar for every next version of you that you become, because they will be so in awe of how you decided to go through life during this very unique phase of it. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I did a really emotional journal entry this morning that kind of brought this idea up. Also, if my voice sounds weird, I think I'm congested and I'm kind of losing my voice, but hopefully it sounded cute and sexy and not raspy and annoying. Let me know if you're down to try any of these, especially the journal prompt of writing from the perspective of your future self to this version of yourself. Just try it. You might think that it's going to be hard because you're like, but I'm me. How can I speak from her perspective? I don't know what's going to happen. I promise you, just try it. There is so much wisdom that you have within you right now that is going to be the thing that then becomes that version of you. Like the only difference between this version of you and that version of you are the decisions that you chose to make in between. So if you really put your head down and try to envision what she might tell you right now, you will really be surprised by all the things she's dying to tell you. And these are things that are usually extremely reassuring extremely faithful. Like you'll start to unlock your most faithful, most fearless, most loving self. And I'm just excited to hear how it goes if you decide to try it. Anyway, my love, I am not going to tell you to like or subscribe. I know you hear that more than enough. But if you like this video, bring a friend with you next time or send it to someone who really needs to hear this. Let's leave people even more powerful than we found them. I love you so, so, so much. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.